Can the Democrats stop the Coney Barrett confirmation to the Supreme Court? Hi, Dave here from Informed America, and I hope you all had a great weekend. I want to go over some of the stuff that's been going on over the last couple of days, and certainly today, as day one of the confirmation hearings begin. You can watch that. I'm sure you can check that out on cable news channels or stream it on YouTube, as I was doing preparing for today. I watched a little bit, and I like to let you all know. Of course, you can comment. Always comment right down below the video, and I can see those live as I'm going through. So I'd love to get your thoughts on if you've watched any of the confirmation hearings. What do you think of this Supreme Court fight? And getting to Biden's answers or non-answers about what he plans to do with the Supreme Court if he is elected president. And I want to start out first today by just sort of setting the table. There was a letter from the American Bar Association that came out. The ABA Journal says that Judge Amy Coney Barrett rated well qualified for Supreme Court by ABA Standing Committee, and they wrote a letter yesterday to the Senate Judiciary Committee saying she received a well qualified rating from a substantial majority of ABA Standing Committee on the federal judiciary. So, and then it goes down below here, just saying a majority says well qualified and a minority says qualified. Does that matter? I don't know. It doesn't seem to be, but I guess it maybe solidifies the point. You know, the ABA isn't necessarily the end all, but it is a good metric to have. If they had come out and said she is not qualified, then that certainly would have been a big deal. But it doesn't seem like there's ever any doubt as to the qualifications of the judge. The fight is, of course, for her I guess we could say ideology. She has a conservative bent, and she's more likely to side on the conservative side of things than the liberal side, and that tilts that would give Trump 3 Supreme Court justices in his first term, which is quite a lot, and that's what the big fight is. It could potentially give the Supreme Court a 6-3 conservative advantage. Of course, you all know that already. You know about that fight. So I think really just to answer the first question of the video, can they stop it? I would say barring any new revelation that comes out, anything substantial that comes out about Amy Coney Barrett, if she horribly flubs any of her comments during the questioning during the Judiciary Committee, I would say it's smooth sailing. The Republicans had already whipped up the votes, which is why I was questioning whether a hearing was even necessary at this point. Just go straight to a vote, or just do formal. A quick little hearing and then just move to a vote. Because what we're getting here is all election season theater. That's what we're left with. She's going to be confirmed, again, barring anything crazy that might come out. So she will be your next Supreme Court justice. Now, so what is the line of attack then? What is the point of these hearings? And so far, from what I've seen, these all have just been opening statements from Democrats, Republicans alternating, giving their thoughts on the Supreme Court. And what this line of attack on Amy Coney Barrett is not, as it seems to me, to prevent her confirmation, but rather to get sound bites and to use in this election season against Trump. And where are they going? We got the first thing here, story here from New York Post. Schumer calls on Amy Coney Barrett to recuse herself from election cases if confirmed. He also mentions here, which we're getting into the big line of attack, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer said if Amy Coney Barrett is confirmed as President Trump's nominee to the Supreme Court, she should recuse herself from hearing cases involving the Affordable Care Act or the 2020 presidential election. Yeah, I mean, come on, you gotta just stay out of this. So, that way we give ourselves a better chance of winning. Says it's clear that Judge Barrett would strike down the Affordable Care Act that has delivered quality and affordable health care to millions of Americans with pre-existing conditions. And President Trump thinks he needs her on her high court to help win re-election. So with these serious conflicts of interest, Judge Barrett must immediately do the bare minimum and pledge to recuse herself from decisions involving the ACA and this 2020 election. Of course, we know Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. He is the moral arbiter of our country, so we have to listen to what he says. He would never suggest anybody do anything, or his motivations are pure. They're not just about politics. He's very concerned here. So that's the line of attack. And one of the big thing that I've heard so far, the strategy here seems to be, she's not going to recuse herself, so forget that. But they like to do, recuse. We saw this with Attorney General Jeff Sessions, who they successfully convinced to recuse himself. And they got him out of the way, right? And they want to do the same thing here. It's always recuse, but it's not happening in this case, I don't think. So what they want to do is the line of attack is the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, if you want to call it that. And to use that messaging to then hopefully get some good sound bites in the news and maybe impact voters' decisions on President Trump. If there is one weakness, well, there's many weaknesses of President Trump, but if there's one that sticks out, I would say it is his healthcare messaging. Particularly, you can think what you want about Obamacare, whether it's good or bad, but the reality is, look, COVID's still going on. A lot of people are sick, and if you do get sick, you could have substantial medical bills. And this line of attack with pre-existing conditions has been effective so far. President Trump has said that he wants to protect pre-existing conditions, but it's not really clear what the health care plan is that the president has. Biden, at minimum, at least has been clear about it. He wants to strengthen Obamacare and then expand it, as a matter of fact. And President Trump, he can talk about it, but there's no concrete plan. So I would say that. So that is the line of attack. The Democrats cannot stop this confirmation, but what they can do is get some good messaging out there that could potentially help Joe Biden. So that is the way I see it. If something changes here as we move through, I'm not sure maybe it's 3 days of hearings and then they move to a vote. I believe that's correct. But if anything does change, we'll pop in and let you know about it. So as we're fighting over the Supreme Court, as we're in the middle of, and all of this is brought up because, of course, Justice Ginsburg had passed, and the Republican Senate is moving very, very quickly to get Amy Coney Barrett confirmed before the election. Excuse me as I drink a little bit of coffee here. Thank you for that. After this happened, you all saw this, and something we've talked about here live here to all of you, is court packing. Democrats, many of them, have been pushing to basically go nuclear. Was I think the theme of the video maybe a week or two ago, and that means doing things like adding Puerto Rico and adding maybe Guam as a state, certainly Washington, D.C. And the other idea is to add more Supreme Court justices, and something that has been traditionally defined as court packing. And we saw this. Where did this come from? This came from, of course, the 1930s. Franklin Delano Roosevelt. There was the Judicial Procedures Reform Bill of 1937. What has been commonly known as court packing. What is that? Basically, what was going on was FDR was trying to push through a lot of the New Deal stuff, but that pesky Supreme Court was knocking some of that stuff down. Now, eventually, a lot of the stuff did get through, but some of the more ambitious stuff that FDR was trying to get through was passed. The Supreme Court would knock that down and declare it unconstitutional. So what do? Well, the way to get the Supreme Court on your side is to expand the number of justices that agree with you, so that way when something else comes up, they will vote for you and allow it to go through. Now, this ended up failing, and it basically left a precedent, we'll call it that. Jay Lee says no. I think you're referring to, can Dems stop Amy Coney Barrett? No, they can't, at least as far as we can tell. But what they are going to do is try to use election messaging to sway voters. Whether that works, I don't know. And maybe, or on the other hand, will this energize, maybe a question here for all of you for watching, if Amy Coney Barrett gets through, she's confirmed, what does this do? Now, we know the Democrats are going to be angry. That could be motivation for them to go to the polls. On the other hand, what about Republicans being like, wow, they got Trump got 3 in. Well, let's go for some more. Let's go for 4 or 5 or something like that. Or they actually did what they said they were going to do. They got conservative justices in there. And of course, by the way, the 6-3 majority, with John Roberts in there, it's probably more like 5-4. And, who knows? I mean, I think conservatives may tell you, even if you had 9 conservative justices, that on all conservative justices on the bench, they would somehow find a way to undermine what you want to get through. But leaving that aside for a sec, back to court packing. This is where the term comes from. This was the popular notion of what court packing meant. When FDR tried to get this law in to expand the Supreme Court, and it never went anywhere. It was delayed and gone. So we've been stuck. Well, not stuck with 9, but we've had 9 justices, I believe, since it says here the Judiciary Act of 1869 that the Supreme Court would consist of a Chief Justice and 8 Associate Justices. Now, and that is actually not in stone either. I mean, there's nothing in the Constitution that says how many justices there must be. So it's basically been, I hate to use the term norm, but 9 justices has been the norm. And of course, when the last president tried to do this through legislation, it just went nowhere. So I guess the idea, because as Dems have been floating this idea of court packing, Biden has been asked repeatedly of whether or not he will pack the court, and he just will not give an answer. And while this fight is going on, we've seen the definition of court packing being turned on its head. So don't fall for this nonsense. You may have already seen this in the news. You may be seeing it here on Facebook or on Twitter or what have you. And here's an example of what we've been seeing. This is a story from Fox News. As Biden and Kamala Harris are persistently refusing to say whether they would pack the Supreme Court if elected, Democrats are now turning the court packing accusation around on Republicans, saying that their commitment to filling vacant judgeships, especially a Supreme Court seat this close to an election, quote, constitutes court packing. I mean, give me a break. But they are on message, and the media has been right behind them. If you've been following any of the blue checks on Twitter, it says here, here's a quote here from Senator Dick Durbin, who is on the Judiciary Committee. The American people have watched the Republicans packing the court for the past 3.5 years. Senator Chris Coons, also on the Judiciary Committee. It constitutes court packing, said of the Amy Coney Barrett confirmation on Fox News Sunday, which prompted Ben Sasse, Republican from Nebraska, who's also on the Judiciary Committee, to say in the next segment that based on that definition, obviously isn't what court packing means, and accusing Coons of using Orwellian language. I mean, that is not, they're calling filling vacancies court packing. That is not what court packing is, whether you like it or not, or whether you like the speed and aggressiveness of filling those vacancies. That is not court packing. Court packing refers to adding more justices. That's what that means. It's not about filling open seats. It is ridiculous that these guys can get away with this. They just turn it around and accuse you of what they refuse to answer. And speaking of that, as I mentioned, not even this is from NPR. Biden campaign continues to deflect on court packing. And then he says, when asked, here's one response: Trump wants you to take the eye off the ball, change the subject. I'm not going to play his game. Okay, that's not an answer. Here's one from Arizona. Voters, how about this one, guys? Voters will know my opinion on court packing when the election is over. Okay, thanks, Joe. It's a great question, and I don't blame you for asking, but, the moment I answer that question, the headlines in every one of your papers will be about that. And he's taking this, what they call here, a wait-and-see response. Joe, I mean, I guess that's the answer, right? First of all, that's the answer. Why would the headlines be all about that? Because your answer is yes, that's why, and you don't want to answer it. Joe Biden didn't want to answer this during the first debate. Senator Kamala Harris refused to answer this when pressed by Vice President Pence, as we went over. Instead of answering whether you support adding more justices to the Supreme Court, She came back with some answer about 1864 and Lincoln not filling the seat before the election or some nonsense like this, which even if true is not an answer to the question, which is, do you plan on adding more Supreme Court justices? Do you plan on adding more Supreme Court justices? Well, I don't want to answer that. We'll have to wait to see the election's over. That's like, doesn't it remind you of the Pelosi thing? You gotta vote for the bill before you see what's in it. Remember that nonsense? So they're not going to answer because the answer is yes. Yes. The Democrats plan on adding more seats to the Supreme Court. And, in the interest of fairness, you see, because fairness means that my team wins. Well, that's how we see it. This is a political fight. It is all theater. It is all grandstanding, as we're seeing in the hearings. Biden is in favor of packing the Supreme Court. President Trump in a Republican Senate filling vacant judicial seats is not court packing. There is no two ways about it. There is no, don't fall for this nonsensical messaging. It is absolute garbage. They know it's a losing issue for them. So they're going to hope they win, and then they'll do it. And that's it. That's it. They'll add, I don't know how many they'll add. I don't know, 3, 4, 5, 10, who knows? And then, and by the way, if we scroll down, just a little bit of history, if you're curious, here, Biden himself in 1983, look at that, he had a bit of head of hair there, saying he said as a Judiciary Committee member where he denounced President FDR's efforts to expand the court. Roosevelt clearly had the right to send to the United States Senate a proposal to pack the court. It was totally within his right to do that. He violated no law. Okay, we know that. That legalistically absolutely correct. But it was a boneheaded idea. It was a terrible, terrible mistake to make. And it put in the question for an entire decade the independence of the most significant body, Supreme Court of the United States. I would not get into court packing, he said in October. We'll add 3 justices next time around. We lose control. They add 3 justices. We begin to lose any credibility that the court had at all. So he was against it before. He's before it, and now he's for it. But he might be against it. No, he's for it. He's for it, and it's true. I mean, it's a terrible idea because it becomes just a fight. We'll end up with 50 justices or something. Every president. When does this end? Or maybe Democrats think that, look, we can just. We'll have a permanent majority if Biden wins, right? We'll get in our justices. We'll get in all the things we want, and Republicans will never win again. Maybe that's the plan. I don't know. But it is to me, it is dangerous and a tit for tat. And don't let them redefine what court packing means. Again, we are in an information war every single day. Everything is fake. It's all theater, but hey, we're all just along for the ride. Thanks for watching. I'd love it if you'd hit the like button here, share this video to your friends. If you're watching on YouTube, also please hit the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And then head on over to informedamerican.com where you can get real smart news. Thanks for watching.